In this video, we're going to look at operations with polynomials. The first operation we're going to look at, or operations, are addition and subtraction, so adding and subtracting polynomials. The first thing you have to remember is that we can only add and subtract like terms. So the parentheses here are just separating the two polynomials from each other. So this is our first polynomial, and this is our second polynomial over here. So we're taking the first one and subtracting the second one. Again, we can only add and subtract like terms. Now, because this is subtraction, this is something you want to be careful of. You have to remember that you're subtracting each term inside the parentheses. So we're actually distributing that subtraction. So my suggestion is to rewrite the first polynomial as is. And then distribute that subtraction. So negative times a negative would give us a positive 7x squared y cubed, or again, subtracting a negative becomes addition. Again, subtracting a negative becomes plus 3x cubed y squared. And then we're subtracting a y squared, so that's a minus y squared. So now we're just going to combine like terms. So I have 6x cubed y squareds here. And then over here I have 3 of them. So all together I have 9x cubed y squared. Then here I have 5x squared y cubes. And over here I have 7x squared y cubes. So all together I have 12x squared y cubed. And then finally, I'm going to combine the y squared. So I have negative 2 here and negative 1 here. So altogether, that gives me negative 3y squared. And the next one, it's the same idea, the only difference being that now we have 3 polynomials. So here's the first, the second, and the third. Because these two are addition, we don't really have to do anything. We can just rewrite those without the parentheses if we want to. But in the third polynomial, just like we did in the last example, we need to distribute that subtraction. So when we do that, that will be plus 4y squared minus 4y plus 3. And then like we did before, we'll go through and combine like terms. So I have negative 7y squared, 3y squared, and 4y squared. So you'll notice that I have negative 7, and then if I look at the positive ones, I have positive 7, so those are just going to all cancel each other out. A negative 7 plus 7 would just be 0. Then I'll look at the y's. I have 9y here, 2y here, and negative 4y. So 9 and 2 is 11, minus 4 is 7y. And then finally, combining the constants, I have 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 3 is 13. So all of that just becomes 7y plus 13. Now we'll look at multiplication. The first one is merely distribution. So what we'll be doing here is we'll be multiplying the coefficients together, the numbers together. And then remember, because we're multiplying, these are monomials times monomials, we'll be adding those exponents. So negative 4y squared times negative 9y cubed gives us a positive 36y to the 5th. Negative 4y squared times positive 4y squared gives us negative 16y to the 4th. And then negative 4y squared times negative 6 gives us a positive 24y squared. The next one, we have a binomial times a binomial. So we're still just using distribution. We'll distribute the 5 to both things in the other parenthesis, and then we'll distribute the 4x to both things in the other set of parentheses. So you may remember the acronym FOIL, which is exactly what we're doing here when we're distributing. It's just a way to remember so that you don't forget anything. So the F stands for multiplying the first two terms together. So that's the 5 times the 2 which gives us 10. And then the outside terms together. So 5 times negative 7x is negative 35x. And then multiplying the inside terms together. So 4x times 2 is 8x. And then multiplying the last two terms together, that gives us negative 28x squared. Now you'll notice that I have like terms right here with the negative 35 and the 8x. So combining those together, I get 10 minus 27x minus 28x squared. And I'm leaving it in that order. When I'm multiplying, that's what Alex will expect you to do. In example 3, we have a binomial with two terms that we are going to multiply by a trinomial. So the first thing we're going to do is use distribution again. So I'm going to start by distributing. I'm going to distribute the 4x to the 7x squared, which gives me 28x to the third. And then I'll distribute the 4x to the 3x, so that gives me plus 12x squared. And then I'll distribute the 4x to the negative 1, which gives me negative 4x. So now that I've done that, I need to go back and distribute this 6, and I'm going to distribute it as a negative 6 because it's minus. So negative 6 times 7x squared is minus 42x squared, and then negative 6 times 3x is negative 18x, and negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6. Now I need to combine like terms. So I just have this 1x cubed, so it's going to stay 28x cubed. I have two x squareds I can combine. I have a 12 and a negative 42, which gives me negative 30x squared. And then I have a negative 4x and a negative 18x that I can combine to be negative 22x. And then finally, I just have this one constant plus 6. So my final answer is 28x squared. X cubed minus 30x squared minus 22x plus 6. The next one's an important one, squaring a binomial. The biggest mistake that students make is they try to just go ahead and distribute the square. So square the 3w, square the 8x, and then be done with it. But you actually can't do that. You'll get the wrong answer if you do. So what you need to remember is that when we're squaring something, we're multiplying it by itself. So what we're really doing here is 3w plus 8x times 3w plus 8x. And so we can see we have two binomials here that we would need to FOIL. So multiplying the first two terms together, we would get 9w squared. Multiplying the outside terms together, we would get plus 24wx. Multiplying the inside terms together, we would get plus 24wx. And then multiplying the last two terms together, we would get plus 64x squared. Combining like terms, that gives us 9w squared plus 48wx plus 64x squared. If you had simply tried to distribute the square, you would be missing that middle term, so the polynomials would not be the same. The last thing we're going to talk about is division. So we're dividing here a binomial by a monomial. The first thing you can do is rewrite this as a fraction, because remember the fraction bar also means division. So taking the first polynomial, in this case the binomial, and dividing it by the monomial, by the second thing. And then what we want to do here, just like when we distribute multiplication, we're actually going to distribute the division. Okay, both of those terms have to be divided by the negative 2uz to the third. So to help you remember that, you can actually separate this out into two separate fractions. So the 16u to the third z to the fifth over negative 2uz to the third. And then the negative 5uz to the fifth over the negative 2uz to the third. So that way you remember to divide both of them. So 16 divided by negative 2 is going to give us negative 8. Using subtraction here, 3 minus 1, remember there's really a 1 there, gives us u squared. And then 5 minus 3 gives us z squared. Here, I can't evenly divide negative 5 by negative 2, and you don't want to give a decimal. So you just leave that as a reduced fraction, but remembering that a negative divided by a negative is going to give you a positive 5/2. Here, because the u's have exactly the same power, they'll cancel. And then again, 5 minus 3 gives us z squared. And there is our solution.